Chapter 5, Talking about Self-Compassion. It is not easy for people to practice self-compassion who have suffered from abuse in their childhood. It is also not easy for them to accept compassion from someone else. There are many reasons for this. First, most of the victims were not raised with compassion. Secondly, most people with a history of childhood abuse haven't practiced self-compassion and were never told to be self-compassionate. Third, there are many obstacles and resistance for victims to accept the concept of self-compassion. You don't suddenly become self-compassionate. It is both a process and a practice. It will take time to practice self-compassion daily. There is no need to push yourself if you are not feeling ready. I'll lay the groundwork for compassion by introducing different ways of thinking. I'll also teach you mindful techniques that will aid you in coping with the feelings that will eventually come up as you continue to face the truth about your abuse. By the time you have completed this part, you will be willing and will be able to begin self-compassion practice, which is later discussed in section 3 of the book. The obstacles to self-compassion. It is understood that those who were abused in their childhood have trouble practicing self-compassion, as many haven't been treated with compassion when growing up. In this chapter, we will discuss the obstacles that victims have to face when practicing self-compassion. I will also help you fully understand how you were abused and how it has affected you. Self-compassion is self-indulgent, a wrong belief. The most prevalent impediment to learning and practicing self-compassion is that many victims regard self-kindness, which is an important component of self-compassion, as a self-indulgent quality. This belief is especially harmful when taken on by victims of abuse and neglect who need self-compassion to heal. Culture discourages people from acknowledging and talking about their suffering. It's considered a sign of weakness. Victims are supposed to get up and move on. Expectations of instant recovery are very unnatural and unreasonable. It takes time to recover from the abuse, and the healing process takes its course. The healing process requires the victim to acknowledge their suffering and adversity. People who show self-denial about their suffering will find that pretending to move on will eventually catch up to them in the form of health issues, which many of which are related to stress. These people also become intolerant of others' pain and sufferings. They think that other people should get over it as they did as a victim of abuse themselves. Acknowledging your suffering with self-compassion is not whining, self-pity, or feeling sorry for yourself. When experiencing self-pity, we complain about the dire situation and see ourselves as helpless people who can't change. There are often bitter thoughts and feelings associated with these feelings. Self-compassion comes from a nurturing place that is inside us and is comforting and validating. Here's the difference between self-pity and self-compassion described by my client, Rose. Self-pity. No one likes me, and I don't have any close friends. I'm going to end up alone in my life. Self-compassion. It's a sad state in which I am in now. I don't have any friends or a man in my life. I'm afraid that I will not have friends or a man in my life ever due to my history, and it's understandable why I have this fear. Rose then told me that self-pity left her bitter and made her hopeless. But after she started practicing self-compassion, she told me that acknowledging that she felt sad and afraid eventually made her better. And using the phrase, "it's understandable," validated her experience. She told me that being self-compassionate kept her motivated and really helped in improving her situation. A fear of developing weakness, laziness, or selfishness. Some individuals worry that being kind to themselves would make them weak, and they will lack the motivation to survive in tough situations. But when we look at history and look at personalities famous for their compassion, such as Jesus, Buddha, Mother Teresa, and Nelson Mandela, their work and struggle can hardly be regarded as weak or unsuccessful. Being self-compassionate actually makes one stronger and confident. One client told me that it was good for him whenever he got hard on himself. He said that he was used to getting lazy and complacent otherwise. It is worth noticing that being hard on yourself doesn't really pay off, and it is not beneficial in the long run. It is far more productive to acknowledge the difficulties and appreciate yourself on how far you have come. Encouraging yourself increases your drive to become more successful. Some people think that being self-compassionate is a selfish trait. As a child, we are taught to put the needs of others ahead of ours. It is for the betterment of society. Because of this belief, some people may consider self-compassion as a selfish characteristic. The belief that you should take the blame. As discussed earlier, believing that you are the reason for your own abuse gives you some sense of control. However, this is a false belief, as it is taking you away from the reality that the abuse was not your fault, and it is just an unfortunate event that took place. This event shouldn't have happened in the first place. Since shame is so debilitating, human beings will do anything to try to avoid it. Having a sense of control makes us feel safe, and we are raised believing that we are responsible for anything happening to us. Thus, when something wrong happens, we tend to feel ashamed. There is also a victim-blaming mentality in our society. In addition, some have spiritual beliefs that something wrong happens to you due to negative energies. Cultural influences like this segregate and blame the victims. A refusal to acknowledge your own suffering. We can't get going if we don't acknowledge the pain. Denial serves as a powerful and effective defense mechanism. In some instances, we wouldn't be able to exist without denial. Some children, for example, have been badly mistreated to the point of suicide. If children allow themselves to acknowledge the abuse they are taking from the hands of their abuser, they may not be able to stay sane. Denial can be your friend, and at times it keeps you sane in unbearable situations. But it is important to know that you will not fully heal until you face the actual truth about your abuse. Some victims often make excuses for their abusers. They do this to minimize the damage. Sometimes they straight out deny their abuse. They need help to take such blinders off and allow their suffering to surface. The following exercise can help in this regard. Exercise your childhood from a different perspective. I want you to write your childhood story and write from the perspective of someone else. Be a storyteller. There once was a little girl who had a stepfather. The child in the story is the subject. Give details about what happened to the child. Please keep the perspective of the storyteller who knows what happened to the child. This exercise will help you to view your childhood from a different perspective. It has helped many of my clients. Not understanding how you suffered. Another reason many of the victims resist acknowledging their abuse is that they simply don't understand how they have suffered from their torturous experiences. Either they are aware of how the abuser has abused them, or they are unaware of how abuse itself has affected them. This section will describe various types of emotional, sexual, and physical abuse endured by children. I really believe that this section will assist you in two possible ways. Number one, it will remove the denial about the fact that you were indeed abused. Number two, it will help you identify how you were abused, also the ways of abuse that you were not aware of. Many victims try to clear the memories of abuse or neglect as children, but for some people, these memories are unclear. Some of the questions are still attached to these traumatic experiences. I've given a brief overview here about what is considered childhood abuse and neglect. All of these can occur separately or in combination. Note, some of the below mentioned acts of abuse can be disturbing. Neglect. Neglect of a child happens when a caretaker or parents fail to provide basic needs for the child. This includes food, water, shelter, and attention that they need growing up. Please keep in mind that failure to meet these demands only applies in this case if caretakers are eligible to meet the basic needs of the family. Emotional abuse. The child's emotional abuse includes acts or omissions by parents or caretakers that cause serious behavioral, emotional, mental, or cognitive disorders. Verbal abuse, placing excessive and unreasonable demands on the child, and failure to provide emotional and psychological support are different forms of maltreatment and emotional abuse. Psychological maltreatment. Emotional abuse is sometimes considered a type of psychological ill treatment. Professionals use this term to describe a concentrated attack by an adult on a child's self-competence or social expertise. This treatment is often deliberate on the caretaker's or parent's part. This maltreatment is classified into the following forms of behavior. Behavior that communicates abandonment to the child. Prevention of the child in participating in everyday activities. Threatening the child with severe punishment. Being emotionally and psychologically unavailable to the child. Encouraging the development of misleading societal values that promote corrupt behavior in the child. Deliberately withholding love, affection, support, and guidance. Acts or behavior that humiliates or degrades the child. Refusal to provide for the activities and experiences that child needs for proper growth and education. Exposing the child to unhealthy and destructive role models. Forcing children to live in dangerous places and unstable environments. Physical abuse. Any non-accidental physical harm or pattern of injuries to a child under the age of 18 is considered physical abuse. This might involve the following: slapping or punching a child so hard that it causes bruising. Kicking a child with so much force that it knocks them down and causes injuries. Beating a child with a hard object. Burning them with cigarettes, hot spoons, or putting their hands in a fire. Biting a child. twisting a child's arms or legs to the point where it fractures or bruises, shoving a child's head underwater, pinning a child to the floor, hitting a child's head in the wall, pinching a child with so much force that it causes unbearable pain and lead to bruising. Sexual abuse. Any interaction between an adult and a child, or an older child and a junior one for the purpose of sexual stimulation is considered sexual abuse. This abuse can range from non-touching offenses such as exhibitionism or showing pornography, penetration, creating child pornography, child prostitution, or fondling. It is assumed that an older child is 2 or more years older than the younger child, but even a minimal age difference can also have tremendous implications. Child sexual abuse can include the following: exposure of genital area, kissing intimately, fondling with the child's body parts, masturbating in front of a child. The child is forcefully convinced to put his mouth and tongue in the genital area, or the adult laces their mouth in the child's genital area. Thrusting of inanimate objects into the vagina or the anus of the child. Penetrating genital area with penis. Showing pornographic material to the child. Subtle forms of emotional abuse. Emotional abuse can take many forms, including ignoring or withholding affection, love, or attention from the child, being disapproving and dismissive of the child's behavior and giving them the silent treatment, giving subtle threats of abandonment, not acknowledging the child's feelings or experience, making a child feel unwanted, projecting one's own problems and issues on the child, causing a child to feel inadequate or incapable. Sometimes parents try to shame their child into behaving, but they don't know the destructive impact on the child's sense of self. Parents also shame their child by telling them that they are such a disappointment. Parents used to tell their children that they would never be good enough. Telling the child that your parents are very disappointed in you crushes the child's spirit. These messages are a form of exceeding expectations. Subtle forms of physical abuse. Although emotional abuse typically includes non-physical forms of abuse, it can also include symbolic abuse. This violence includes intimidating behaviors such as throwing dishes, slamming doors, kicking a wall, or generally destroying things around. Subtle physical abuse also includes keeping a strap, belt, or paddle on display all the time, so the child is intimidated. This is also done to make a child behave in a certain way, and when the child doesn't do what the parents want, they point them toward the belt or strap. Subtle forms of child sexual abuse. A subtle form of sexual abuse includes nudity, disrobing in front of a child, observing the child when they bathe or undress, passing inappropriate comments that are sexual in nature in front of a child, touching a child in a sexualized way, being seductive and intimate with a child or sharing intimate sexual details with the child, making a direct or indirect sexual suggestion toward a child. Your reactions to this information. While reading this section, you may have had strong reactions such as surprise, shame, or anger. You may be shocked at the degree of denial that you are going through. However, you must have compassion for yourself instead of criticizing yourself for something that you didn't have any control over. Hold on, TikTok. You may be overwhelmed with anger or disbelief about how much abuse you have sustained throughout your childhood. It is common for victims to feel a great deal of anger, and it is a natural reaction. Releasing this anger can motivate and empower you. The good news is that there are ways to get through which you can safely release your anger. I have discussed these below. Releasing your anger. Some healthy and constructive ways to release your anger are: write a letter to your abuser and let them know how you were affected. Let all your feelings and anger come out on page. Walk around the house assuming you are alone and talking loudly to yourself. Express all the rage and anger you are having. Imagine your abuser sitting in front of you. Tell them everything without censoring anything, and don't hold back. And if you are afraid of the abuser, assume they are tied to a chair. Put your face in a pillow and scream. If you need to release your anger physically, find a safe and satisfying way to do so. For example, hitting the mattress of your bed is a safe and satisfying way to release the rage. Or you can go to a rage room near you, okay? Sorry. Relieving compassion from others. In the previous section, we discussed the obstacles in practicing self-compassion. In this section, we will focus on how to overcome these common obstacles. Obstacles to accept compassion. Many victims refuse to take compassion from others as they believe they don't deserve it and don't need it. For instance, when I try to be compassionate with my clients, they start to downplay it by saying abuse hasn't affected them that much in their lives and say that they have gotten over their abuse. If you somehow relate to these types of statements that my client express, chances are that you are still in some form of denial. The following exercise that I have included can help you look at the denial and better understand why it is such a strong force. Exercise. The exploration of your denial. Number 1. Because blank, it is hard for me to acknowledge that I was mistreated in this way. Number 2. Admitting that I was abused will make me blank. Number 3. If I confess the extent to which the abuse has damaged me, blank. Number 4. I don't want to confront my abuser while knowing the painful truth because it will blank. And number 5. Because blank, I'm hesitant to let myself experience my anger or despair. Living in a culture of denial and feeling undeserved. Our culture typically frowns upon those people who acknowledge their sufferings. In fact, our culture has a habit of celebrating people who overcame or moved on from their woes. People want to face everyone with a happy face and don't want others to start talking about their problems. It is so common for people to put on a happy face, yet if someone gives them news about their suffering, it comes as a shock to them. Many people who were abused in their childhood are so ashamed that they believe they don't deserve compassion from others. You should feel no shame in reaching out to those who can provide the compassion that you need. Having difficulty taking in the good. Another primary reason victims feel they don't deserve compassion is that they have difficulty accepting anything good. You start to push away people who are good to you simply because you believe you aren't worthy of these good things and behavior. Victims have a hard time accepting gifts or compliments from others. Many of my clients tell me that they put the gifts in a drawer or a closet and don't use or see them. They usually give them to someone else. Some say that they get critical and start complaining about the gifts. Some victims even avoid acknowledging the thought of having gifts or compliments. Taking a compliment and gifts can easily make you uncomfortable when you are not feeling good about yourself and believe that you don't deserve good things. The same goes for compassion if someone else is giving it to you. So, the next time that you receive a gift or a compliment, try the exercise I've added below. Exercise: learning to take a compliment. Number 1, don't say anything right away and hastily. Number 2, take a deep breath and relax. Take a deep and relaxed breath and imagine taking the compliment. Number 3, notice how it feels. If it makes you uncomfortable, try to allow it by not being judgmental. Number 4, breathe out and say thank you to the person. Try to add something positive, and if not, give a neutral response. If you have an urge to say something negative, try to resist it. Try to have a genuine smile when saying thank you. And number 5, take some time and reflect on the exercise. Try to write up any feelings or memories that came up during this exercise. You can also do the same exercise when you receive a gift. When taking a deep breath, take some time to imagine how much thought and time this person gave while choosing this gift. Keeping our emotional walls high. The reason some people have difficulty in taking compassion from others is that they feel vulnerable. If you have built up a wall to shield yourself from shame, it may become difficult to lower it and to let compassion in. Some people become so overwhelmed with grief and pain that they start to disassociate from it. Others feel that it will be soon taken away from them if they allow kindness and joy. Receiving the compassion you missed out on. Now I will offer you a safe environment, kindness, and support that you may not have received while growing up. Taking in words of compassion. Imagine you are sitting with me in any environment you are comfortable in. Take the list you made earlier about how in different ways you were abused as a child. Slowly read that list in silence and notice how you feel. Reread the list, this time aloud. Now, imagine me saying these words to you. I'm sorry for all of the things that have happened to you. I'm sorry you were abused in these ways. I want you to know that I understand your suffering. I know you have felt alone, and no one could possibly understand how you are feeling. I understand all of this because I have been an abused victim myself and have survived these horrific feelings. Many clients have told me their stories, and it has given me a deep understanding of how abuse can make people suffer. No one should go through this torment. I believe that knowing someone cares for you makes suffering a little more bearable. Sit back and try to take in my words. Reread the words again and take deep breaths until you can take the words in.